Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Double Down seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which every card in our starting deck gets duplicated, and every time we play a unit, we will play a random unit from our deck with the same provision cost. That opens up some unit combos that are not possible in any other event, including this ridiculous one that you guys have wanted me to do for a while. So let's go take a look at the deck. So today we'll be playing a Monster's Overwhelming Hunger deck, and possibly the deck that I've been waiting the longest to finally unveil, but I think the wait is going to be worth it, and I hope it'll show you why Double Down is my favorite event in the game, because the combo we're going to pull off is insane. The centerpiece is Weavess Incantation, and the way that she works is whenever we play a Death Wish unit, we will automatically trigger the Death Wish before we even destroy that unit, so that gives us basically a quote-unquote free Death Wish. But in this event, we obviously get 2 Weavess Incantations, which means we can do that even more times, and if we make a point of creating additional copies of Weavess, then we can trigger even more Death Wish and pull off some ridiculously strong combos that are probably not possible with any other combo in any other event. So that is what we were trying to do. Let's talk a little bit about how we set that up first, because that's actually the most difficult part, getting as many Weavesses as you can. Generally speaking, first thing you're going to want to do is get a Cave Troll in the range row. Weavess is row locked to the range row, so you want to be protecting that, because it does take some time to set up all those Weavesses. So start with Cave Troll. Then you probably want to have Weavess directly in your hand rather than tutoring her out if you can afford to do that, because there are some combos that require that you have Weavess directly in your hand, can't tutor her directly out from your deck. Way you do that is with Triss Butterflies, you can make sure to get Weavess directly in your hand. And once you've done that, the combo that requires that you have Weavess in your hand, not in your deck, is Caranthir. So you use Caranthir in the range row, spawn in a copy of Weavess, and that way you can get a Weavess on the board without actually playing the Weavess in your hand. That way you can still repeat this combo in a later round. So that's just a way of giving you a little more reliability. So once you've done that, you have a Weavess or more on the board. You could still play one of the Weavesses from your hand if you'd like to, but most importantly, you get at least one out there. Then you're using Arachas Queen to consume the Weavess. Play Arachas Queen in the range row. Arachas Queen's Death Wish ability will spawn in an extra Weavess. So if you have a spare Weavess, when you do this consumption, then that Weavess will immediately trigger the Arachas Queen's Death Wish ability, and suddenly you already have started spawning in additional Weavesses, or you start consuming the Arachas Queen and triggering the Death Wish, and you'll start spawning in those extra Weavesses that way as well. You could, if you wanted to, although it is probably a little bit overkill, could get an Idarran in the range row as well. Probably going to run out of board space if you end up doing this, but if for some reason, a Weavess got destroyed or something like that, then Idarran might be a way to make up for that a little bit. And before you actually destroy that Arachas Queen, though, if you're on Flute Coin, you can use Urn of Shadows to create an extra Weavess by clicking on the Arachas Queen with that. And similarly, you can use Abaya to trigger the Death Wish an extra time to create even more of the Weavesses. So then at that point, you should have lots of Weavesses in your range row. So that is the hard part. But once you've done that, it is all up to you to decide what Death Wish card do you want to play and trigger that Death Wish a bazillion times. I would say the best option is probably Imperial Manticore, because destroying lowest enemy unit, sure, doing that one time might not be a huge deal if they have a 1 or 2 point unit that isn't really doing anything anymore, but if you do this a bunch of times, then you might even destroy every single unit they have on the board, and obviously that's a pretty huge deal. So if you have a lot of Weavesses and then you play Imperial Manticore, this is in many cases a round winner. So that is probably the best combo. I'd say maybe the second best in most circumstances might be Rotfiend, because every time you trigger the Death Wish here, you're getting 5 damage, which might not quite be enough to destroy a unit for every single Death Wish proc, but it's pretty close to it. So that is another way to destroy a ton of your opponent's units. Similarly, Werecat, in this case, dealing damage to every unit in one of your opponent's rows. That's if your opponent is row stacking a lot, and if they aren't, then that's where I think Werecat is perhaps slightly worse than these other options. But there are even more options, so those are all damaging. But you could go for boosting with Bridge Troll, if that seems preferable. Or, if you're feeling particularly devious, you could use Noonwriath, because every time this Death Wish procs, you're going to spawn 2 1-powered rats in your opponent's row. Those are not really cards they want to have in their row. They are extremely low value, and especially in this event where generally your opponent is playing 2 units every turn, to clog up their rows with a bunch of rats means they are probably stuck and not able to do anything at all unless they have a way to destroy their own units, and there aren't many decks that can do that. So especially given how many times you're going to proc that Death Wish, this should be a great way to completely prevent your opponent from playing other units. So those are the ways that you can proc the Death Wish and get a ton of value from all the Weavesses. So that's a way to win one round. As I was saying, you could, by creating the initial Weavess with Caranthir, still keep your original Weavess, and that's a way to repeat the combo in a later round, or use Xavier in the range row, and with him, banish whatever your low-value monsters cards are from your graveyard, basically anything not named Weavess, and then in round 2 or round 3, whichever one you're trying to win in, use Witch's Sabbath in the range row to bring the Weavesses back, and then the Weavesses, sure, you're not going to have quite as many as you had in round 1 in this case, but you just do that and combine it with maybe a few of the Death Wish cards in this case, you know, break out the Bridge Troll, break out maybe an early Noonwriath and flood your opponent there, or, as we were saying, go the damage route with something like Rotfiend, or a Werecat, or just complete destruction if you go the Imperial Manticore route. So that's what the deck is all about, pulling off ridiculous Weavess duplication combos to proc as many Death Wishes as you can, because it is crazy how much value you can get out of that. So let's go see it in action. Alright, going up against Northern Realms here, and we'll go first. Alright, so we have Weavess, that's key. That is, of course, the primary card we're building around in round 1. Then we have a Cave Troll to help protect her. We have Arachas Queen and Abaya are mostly for round 3. Then we have at least one Death Wish card we can use when we create all those copies of Weavess, but we're looking for more things that can actually create those copies. So let's dump Hideous Feast. Royal Decree can definitely help us get those. Witch's Sabbath is potentially a way to get those Weavesses back, although I'm actually looking for a way to circumvent that issue altogether and just never actually play this Weavess from our hand in round 1, so might even dump this. Okay, Bridge Troll is another option for a Death Wish unit, so if we want to go the damage route, we can do that with Rotfiend. If we want to go the boosting route, we can do that with Bridge Troll. So despite being a 4 provision cost card, is actually not bad, and Imperial Manticore is our best Death Wish target in most circumstances, but we'd probably like to save it for round 3 for that reason. So let's go Cave Troll first. Protect the range row, and we have a lot of 9 provision cost cards. Obviously, the Cave Troll is one of them, but very much would have preferred to have seen anything other than Cave Troll there, so we could have saved that one for round 3. Okay, so it's going to be Spellweaver spam. Reaver Scout might be to create more Spellweavers. Spellweaver spam is, of course, very strong in this event, but what I'm hoping to do is, rather than playing this Weavess directly from our hand, get Caranthir to spawn in extra copies of Weavess, and then we can save this Weavess that we can play directly from our hand in round 3. That way we can circumvent needing to use Witch's Sabbath, which is possible, but a little more difficult to execute, or at least a little less reliable. So let's go Royal Decree here, and we'll use this to get Idarran out. It's a way to create additional copies of Weavess once we do use Caranthir. But we still need Caranthir, and the only way we can get him right now is with Triss Butterflies. Caranthir is another 9 provision cost card, and so is Triss, so we might even get Caranthir when we play Triss. Otherwise, we can use Triss to, with her ability, give us Caranthir in her hand. So they're going to load up on a ton more damage, of course. They're going to see if they can get more Spellweavers in particular, which they will do with these Reaver Scouts. Or Archers, really. Okay. Oh, it's only Soldiers, right. Fair enough. Alright, well, eventually they will break through this Cave Troll. So we do need to make sure we're being as quick as we can here, but it does take a while to set this up. So as I said, it's Triss, and with Triss, we should put back... I think we'll put back... Bridge Troll will give us boosts on our 1 power Weavesses, because they will be 1 power when they're created by Caranthir and when they're created by Idarran. On the other... So that makes them more resilient to damage from Spellweavers. On the other hand, Rotfiend can get rid of those Spellweavers. Maybe we actually dump Abaya. So we're not going to use him in this round. He is definitely a card we want for round 3. But, okay, so there's one Caranthir, and, well, there's the other Triss. So, at this point, now it's getting a little awkward. Okay, oh, Xavier, I didn't even realize we had him. Do that, and I don't think we want Caranthir at this point, in truth. Oh, and we didn't want that either, because we already had the other Arachas Queen. I did not remember that we had that. Yeah, because the The reason why we didn't want the other Caranthir is because I believe he's our only 9 provision cost card remaining. Yeah, he is. So we have both Cave Trolls, both Trisses. So this Caranthir gives us automatically the other Caranthir. And this Arachas Queen was going to give us this Arachas Queen, so basically the same reason we didn't want the second Caranthir is the same reason we didn't want the Arachas Queen. I just didn't remember that we still had you. Okay, so now they're going to teleportation. And they're, again, just loading up on the damage. I'm surprised they haven't tried to break through the Cave Troll yet, because they're, I would think, pretty close to being able to do that. Our issue now is that because we got double Triss and double Cave Troll, we're running out of room in this range row. So we will use Caranthir, of course. And with him, create more Weavesses. And this is what I mean. Now we're getting this Caranthir, and, you know, it's not as effective. I mean, we can technically still create a copy of... Yes, Manticore is probably our preference in this case. It's going to be Reaver Scout or Redanian Archer, which is not great. I might have actually preferred Rotfiend in that case. So we could... And yeah, we actually don't have a lot of consumption here in this hand. We don't want to use Arachas Queen in this round. So I think we will kind of have to do some consumption there from this Weavess. So I expect them to break through right now. In fact, we might have needed to do all of that right now, because these Weavesses are about to get hit pretty hard, I think. We just needed them to last one more turn, so we could do Bridge Troll, Rotfiend, any combination of those things. But perhaps we needed to get a little bit faster. Let's see, they have just enough damage to remove 2. Yeah. Yep. That hurts. That hurts a lot. I mean, we still have a pretty big lead, don't get me wrong. But that means that... I mean, that was all just meant to be set up to get as many Weavesses as possible. And we only have 1 left. So suddenly, it is not nearly as impactful to spam Death Wish cards as we would like for it to be, but maybe it's still enough of a lead that we can make this count here. So obviously they're going to want to go for Weavess, which is why I was saying that Bridge Troll could potentially make some sense. So we could rush that to get Weavess boosted up, and even Urn of Shadows at that point is probably going to boost up one of these 4s. Or we could Rotfiends and potentially get rid of some of their damage dealers. So, I mean, Imperial Manticore would destroy some of them as well, but again, without all the Weavesses, it's much weaker. Guess we'll go Bridge Troll. I just don't know that that's going to make that much of a difference. This is going to row flood them, but that's not going to make a huge difference here either. As I said, that was going to hit a 4 power card and not really help Weavess, and they definitely have enough damage here that they can get rid of Weavess if they want to, and I assume they will. Question is, will they catch us on this turn? We actually don't really have any need for Idarran anymore. Actually, as I was saying, I mean, we ran out of board space. I'm pretty sure we would have been able to spawn in more Weavesses had we not had the bazillion Trisses and whatnot. So we are still in the lead. They are much more set up than we are, because they still have basically all their engines, and we do not have our key set up anymore. So I think we do just pass here. Unfortunate. We kind of just got really unlucky with our 9 provision cost cards flooding our row and slowing us down. But the key thing is that we saved our original Weavess, so we can still do Weavess plus Arachas Queen in a later round, and that is really, generally, the best way to create the Weavesses in the first place. So they'll win round 1. But they did play 1 more card than us to do it. Now, we did accidentally draw into a second Arachas Queen, so we should get rid of one of these. And we draw into Werecat and also Abaya. That is another card that synergizes with Arachas Queen, so that's... Our round 3 combo is looking good, but we would like a throwaway card here in case they do dry pass. And it might be Noonwriath. Now, they could get greedy, but they don't. Okay, so good thing that we have Noonwriath. I mean, it can be a solid Death Wish option with all your Weavesses, if you have enough Weavesses to completely row flood them. But I'm assuming that's probably still the card that we are most willing to forego. Well, we can row flood, we can damage. You're also a Death Wish damage card, so to a certain extent, We have damage already. If we want to still give ourselves the option of row flooding, then we might want to keep Noonwriath. Maybe we do use Rotfiend. Have more Rotfiends remaining? We do have more Rotfiends remaining. Yeah, we'll go Rotfiend, tell you the truth. Maintain flexibility for round 3. Okay, and there is a Rotfiend, so now that is still an option. We'd like to get rid of Hideous Feast. That's probably not something we're going to want unless we run out of space, which we have enough consumption that probably shouldn't happen. We have both Abayas. We do still have other 6 provision cost cards, namely Xavier, which is not as valuable. We have too many 7 provision cost cards, though. We have 3 out of 4 in our hand. I don't love Hideous Feast, though. Slyzard, okay, gives us more consumption, which we might want to pick up the pace of our consuming efforts. So, the biggest problem here is that we got double Cave Troll in round 1, which we really did not want to see, so we do not have a way to protect our Weavesses. So, that's unfortunate. The good thing is that, generally speaking, when it comes to Spellweavers, they have damage, yes, but it's slow damage. So my hope here is that maybe we just start off right off the bat with Weavess Incantation, and we can get far enough along with our combo setup that they will not be able to stop us. What I'd like to, ideally, Weavess is preferable to Weavess Arachas Queen. Those are our 10 provision cost cards. So, I mean, now we do have a card out here that is a Death Wish card that we do eventually want to destroy. So, it's actually not bad if they go with damage here. But I wanted Weavess because then you can actually get the extra proc from the Arachas Queen in that case. Whereas now we're going to need to go Abaya to trigger this Death Wish to get the Weavesses back out there. Then we can consume them with this Arachas Queen. Okay, Donamir. There's their defender. Boosting with Nenica. So yeah, basically, I would like for them to just play this slow and give us time to set up if possible. We can go Abaya. Our range row, as we saw in round 1, does get quite full quite quickly. Okay, so there is Xavier. And as I said, he is our other 6 provision cost card. Would have preferred the other Abaya. Well, we have the other Abaya in our hand. So, you can go range row with Xavier to banish other monsters from your graveyard if you're trying to set up a Witch's Sabbath, but we don't need to use Witch's Sabbath. We don't have Witch's Sabbath, so we'll just go melee row, which especially given how we are saving range row for the Weavesses. Oh, hold on. More Spellweavers. So there's a chance they're going to get their Spellweavers out from their graveyard with Necromancy, because that is a spell, which does mean more charges for those Spellweavers. But yeah, so now we can go to, well, the other Abaya. And trigger this once again. Give us our other Xavier. Gonna trigger the Thrives for what it's worth. Not a huge deal, but we do have more Spellweavers? No, but what is your next most valuable? Maybe the Scouts? Assuming they're trying to make more Spellweavers. I mean, these Arbalists are certainly not bad either, nor are the Archers, but... Okay. So, technically speaking, we could and actually should do this next. We aren't going to use them on this turn, but we are about to go Arachas Queen, consume one of them. So there is a Reaver Scout. They're going to use it, I assume, to play more spell. Oh no, again, they can't use it to play Spellweavers. It's going to have to be the Archers, but they have a lot of damage. Okay, so we are going to consume this Weavess. Because she is the most vulnerable at the moment. And in doing so, because we have these other 2 Weavesses on the board when we do this, that means we get some extra Weavesses, and we get this Weavess out from our deck as well. And then, now that we have all the Weavesses on the board, we can just immediately consume this Arachas Queen. To get all the Weavesses, just do some more banishments here. Seems like Arbalist is maybe not a bad idea, and sure, some Archers. And so now we can start spamming Death Wish cards, and should have enough Weavesses that unless they can get these Spellweavers really going on their next turn, we might be able to flood their rows completely, which may be worth doing, or we could destroy the Spellweavers with Werecat or with Imperial Manticore. Up to us which direction we feel is best. They're trying to hide Visigoda behind their defender and give shields and whatnot. Well, we can count up how many Weavesses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Weavesses means 6 Manticores. Actually, when we play it, might get our other one out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards on the board. It would remove almost everything. Everything other than Donimir and Reynard. Honestly, that's fine. Might go that route, because they have a lot of engines. So getting rid of those would certainly be pretty valuable at this point. Otherwise, we could wait, and the problem would be if we get double Manticore, then we're removing more, or we have more ability to remove than we're actually able to benefit from. Otherwise, we could go Werecat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th here. 7 damage to a row, removes everything except Donimir, but it keeps you guys. Take your pick. This is also a big burst of damage. Maybe it's Rotfiend first. Something like that. Doesn't cut everything off, but as I said, we still have options here. We can go Werecat for more damage. We can go Manticore for more damage. We can get Slyzard down if we need the consumption, though I'm not really sure that's going to be all that necessary. Alright, so let's see. Still have the same amount of Weavesses set up. So that's the thing, is by getting aggressive with the damage, now we have significantly slowed the rate at which they can deal damage to us. So there was a while there where it looked threatening. They might have been able to take out some Weavesses, but we beat them to the punch there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we could remove everything if we were to play Imperial Manticore. Might get the second Manticore, though, in which case that's going to basically just be a complete dud. It's not going to remove anything because there's not going to be anything left on the board. So, I mean, I think we still do it, though. Well, I guess no matter what the next one is, it was either going to be this or it was going to be a Werecat. So, alright, we will save the consumptions because we don't need them. So, no engines for them. It's botchling. So, I mean, they might still have some engines, right, at this point. But the problem is, it's going to be hard to outdo us at this late stage. And we can still remove both of those guys if we want to. If we were to go and consume both these Manticores, and they are both engines, so we very well may. In fact, what if we... I mean, Hideous Feast is definitely our weakest card here. So, sure, I mean, we'll damage, and, well, it's not going to matter. They've realized there's no way they can stop us, so they'll forfeit. Alright, so going up against Skellige here. And we'll go first. Alright, so let's see. We are not looking at enough of the pieces for our combo here. We believe only have Idarran at 8 provisions, so let's dump him. We were guaranteed to get the other one. Seen a lot of our low provision Death Wish cards, but we're looking for Weavess more than anything right now. So that is the question, is can we get her? I mean, Caranthir at 9. We do have other 9s, at least Cave Troll. Yeah, we have plenty of 9s, so it is theoretically possible to get some other stuff out of there, but still looking for, yeah, still not finding what we're looking for here. Really wanted Weavess, so we could keep this round short and try to make Weavess happen in round 2 or round 3. The problem there is that, I mean, Earner Shadows is a nice way to help empower our combo a bit, and we haven't been able to, or we won't be able to get as much value out of that in this case. So guess we keep it really simple here. And we might consume Noon... Oh, no, we can't really row flood them in a short round, right? I mean, we do have another Noonwriath, but even if we go Slyzard, I don't think that's going to be enough. Okay, well, all the more reason for us to keep this round short if they're going to throw a scenario down. Definitely don't stand much chance competing against that at the moment. So, 2 Slyzards. Yeah, I think we could play a Slyzard. So, Just a matter of which card we want to be consuming. I guess we'll go for you. Okay, well, there's another Slyzard. Guess we don't have to choose after all in that case. Alright, they're gonna hit this Slyzard. And that movement actually is annoying against Slyzards. Seems like they really want us to be not consuming this and only consuming that Noonwriath. Okay, so this is probably going to end up being the last turn that we take here in this round. Let's go maybe Cyclops just to destroy this bridge troll, find a way to actually put it to some good use here. And I mean, sure, we'll consume the Noonwriath if we really want to. Well, I mean, I guess it's technically a net 0 point, or a negative point play. So let's actually go Earner Shadows here to boost you up. And then we'll go Cyclops here. And hit, I guess, Holger with the damage. And then maybe hit the other Cyclops with this Cyclops. And, I mean, Holger is overkill damage. But he is more powerful than Hammond at this point because he's still doing stuff, whereas Hammond is not. But either way, as I said, I think that's going to be the last one that we play. Oh, also, it does mean that we're setting Cataclysm on our own row. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be the last card that we play this round anyway. Alright, so that's really all we want to do in this round, because we are still looking to get our big stuff. Most importantly, Weavess later on. And they've already won the round, but they're gonna keep on playing Joanna for healing. Okay, I mean, you can play more if you really want to, but I mean, I assumed they were gonna, yeah, not play anything and at least have the option of pushing in round 2, but they're probably less likely to do that now. So we do have one more card than them in this round. If they do try to push a little bit, they're probably going to at least use a couple of throwaways. We have Oneiro. We have Triss Butterflies, which we can use to get Weavess. So that is the biggest change we have now. I mean, I suppose theoretically we could have gone for a 9 provision cost card and seen if we got a random Triss Butterflies out from our deck, because they both cost 9 provisions, but wasn't feeling like taking that chance. Might dump Caranthir, because we do have so many 9 provision cost cards, I think. In fact, enough that we can get all of them out from our deck anyway. So, yeah. I think that's also better if they do keep this round short. A little bit easier to use some throwaways. So, don't know how much they're going to try to push here. Like, Drakkar could definitely be a throwaway. I mean, Corsair does synergize with it, but it's not as if they played a huge engine on their first turn. So not entirely sure how to read into that. So we could go straight into Triss Butterflies and use that to get Weavess into our hand. That's an option. Alternatively, we could just use some throwaways here and see if we happen to draw into Triss, or rather draw into Weavess in round 3, then we can use Triss for something entirely different. So maybe we don't commit to Triss just yet, because she can give us some nice flexibility. So let's go Noonwriath first, just for the base power in both cases. Alright, it's Raiders, which again is not a bad card, but is hard to tell if they're using it as a throwaway here, or if that is an indication that they are trying to play further. Is making it more difficult to know how we should play the rest of this round. I mean, Werecat we could use. It has Thrives, it's a little bit of an engine if they do try to push further. They have a lot of stuff already in that melee row, so it's not terrible on the deployability. Would like to use Oneiro, so we can get the echoed copy of that in round 3, but maybe that's our last play, since we do have, at the very least, one more card we can play in this round and still drop to 10 cards for round 3, even if they don't push further. So we get double of these guys going. Did unfortunately mean we had to play further in the melee row. Okay, but yeah, they were looking to try pass anyway, or well, they were looking to use those as throwaways, so Werecat was not a huge commitment, so should be fine there then. And, or it does mean we're going to need a preferred Death Wish target when we do get Weavess, and Werecat's not a terrible option for that. nor is Rotfiend. Right now, that's probably our best option, but if we need to, we can use Triss to get an option there. So, we'll pass here and take the round 2 win. Alright, but actually, Imperial Manticore is now far and away our best Death Wish target, I think. Destroying their lowest unit, if we can do this a bazillion times, that would be fantastic. So, the question is just, do we have too many 9s now that we drew into Caranthir as well? Because we might. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 in hand here. Do we have less than that in our deck? We have this is a 9. Yeah, I think we have too many 9s in hand right now. So in that case, let's dump Caranthir. And Witch's Sabbath is, well, I mean, if we had gotten Weavess set up in a previous round, it would have been nice to have Witch's Sabbath, but since we basically didn't do much at all in round 1 or round 2, it's not really all that useful to us at the moment. But let's start with Cave Troll, I suppose. Get the Defender in the range row, because Weavess is row-locked to the range row. Granted, might have wanted to have gone Triss first, just in case. We ended up getting the Caranthir as our random 9 provision cost card from our hand here, or rather from our deck. So now we're going to have to make a copy of a card that we just don't love here. It might end up being Slyzard, to be honest, just to give us quicker consumption. Otherwise, it could be Imperial Manticore. That is eventually going to be the card we create a bazillion copies of. But it's just a little preemptive for that. So that's unfortunate, but that's one of the reasons why this deck is a little memey. We do have a lot of stuff at 9 provisions, which can get a little bit messy at times. But we should go Triss Butterflies next, make sure we get Weavess. Alright, Bjorn is going to clash with our Defender. They're going to move our Defender. Okay, that starts to get a little bit concerning because that Defender very much did need to be in the melee row, or rather in the range row. But we are probably about to play Triss. And with Triss, she is a 9, so we'll get another 9 from our deck. And it won't be Caranthir. It could be the other Triss. But I'm kind of hoping it's the other Cave Troll instead, and we can just put it back in this row here. Because that's what we are kind of missing at the moment. So let's put back that Witch's Sabbath, as I was saying, is probably our least valuable card right now. And then let's get the Weavess in hand. And it is Cave Troll. Okay, great. So put that back in the range row. And the reason why I did choose to go Slyzard here is because this range row is going to get pretty crowded. Caranthir and Triss have already done their job, so we're just going to clear out space. Alright, they're going to use their Defender. We actually don't need to manually target any of their stuff, fortunately. So let's see. Now we do want to go Caranthir into creating an extra Weavess in this row, is the plan. Now that we have Weavess in hand, we can do that. And here is the other Triss. And with this one, this is a little bit trickier. We could get rid of the Slyzard, because we already did create an extra copy of one in our range row, but we probably are going to want one in the melee row as well, so I think we still keep that. What are we going to want to get? I mean, we could get Arachas Queen. I was going to use Oneiromancy to get that, but I guess we don't really need Rotfiend anymore, since we're going to use Imperial Manticore for that purpose instead as our desired Death Wish unit. Okay, and once again, let's just clear out space. As you can see, it does certainly start to get crowded in that range row, and could even make the case for using Weavess's order ability to get her boosted up, and we'll rely more heavily on the Slyzard for consumption in that case, but that's in part why I kept this one here. Did they just discard a card? Hold on. They played a Flamnika. No, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Alright, so now let's get our remaining Weavesses on the board. Then we're going to use Arachas Queen to actually create even more copies of them. But we want to do this first. Oh, well, speaking of Arachas Queen, well, okay then. That is another one of our 10 provision cost cards in this case. Let's consume the smaller Weavess, and this Weavess will immediately trigger the Death Wish. And we don't really want to consume this yet. Obviously, we will eventually. But we'd like to use Abaya to trigger the Death Wish another time first. Okay, so they're capable, theoretically capable, of breaking through this cave troll pretty soon using these Terrors of the Sea, but we are close to done with our setup here. Let's, speaking of giving ourselves more room, is this going to be, before we consume there? I think we'll have enough. We can go leader building if we have to for consumption. Clearing out space, so we can go, I think it's going to be, let's not use this, otherwise we're definitely going to start running out of space. Let's go Arachas Queen, consume a Weavess, immediately trigger that, and get another Weavess out, because again, that's a 10 provision cost card. And so now before we do the consumption here, we want to go Abaya. So we should wait a little bit on that. Because the goal is to get as many Weavesses as possible, so that way, yeah, and as I said, here's going to be the Terror of the Seas damage on Cave Troll. So we want to take that out, but it might have bought us just enough time that we can still be okay here. Because, yeah, Bjorn will remove this. Now they can target something else. It's another Bjorn. Wait, didn't they? Oh, that must have been the one they put back in their hand. Or maybe that was the discard that I was thinking I saw previously. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get rid of one of the Weavesses. But as I said, now is where things start to get interesting, because we can go Abaya, with which we can trigger that, and go for the other Abaya, and trigger that. And then we can start, we'll start consuming these Arachas Queens at this point. Technically speaking, actually, might have wanted to, if we were getting really greedy, we could have gone Idarran first. I mean, we technically could still wait to do Idarran before we do some consumption here. But I think we'll just use Idarran to get the Imperial Manticore, some more of those. So, yeah, we'll do it. Okay. So those are going to be all the Weavesses. So we would ideally like to go Idarran next, if possible. But, I mean, the other reason why we didn't go Idarran earlier was because, as we can see, we're running out of time a little bit here. Because they're getting aggressive with their removal. Although, they may be running out of some control options here. They don't have enough Death Wish, or rather, a Bloodthirst, to replay Bjorn right now. So it's more difficult for them to deal with our Weavesses. But that leader ability, if they use both charges, they could have used that to get rid of one of the Weavesses. Okay, so yeah, now the question is it Imperial Manticore immediately? Or is it getting greedy with Idarran? Technically, yeah, no, Idarran had to be earlier, right? Because that was going to be spawning in additional Weavesses. This is technically not spawning at this point. So, yeah, Idarran is kind of the odd man out right now, but we'll introduce them to what the actual purpose of this deck was. Because every Weavess that we have is triggering that Manticore ability, so don't even need to consume them right now. The Weavesses alone will do the trick. Now, we could have waited a little bit longer, I suppose, and just destroyed everything once they had even more units on the board, because now they have, what, 4 cards they could potentially still use to catch up to us a bit, but I think we have done what we set out to do here. Unfortunately, yeah, Morkvark's going to deal a decent bit of damage. Perhaps a good thing that we didn't do any more consumption just yet on that Slyzard. And the Rupture only hits based on base power. So that Weavess might be a 12, but she only has 5 base power, so it's only going to deal 5 damage. So that's not a huge deal. And we can still destroy those two. Basically, we can consume with our remaining Weavesses or the Slyzard on these Imperial Manticores. If we wanted to, we could destroy these two. If we think they're going to get something better in a later turn, then we could be more patient. Again, we rushed a little bit on these Manticores because we were a little concerned they were going to start breaking out some more control. We do have an Oneiro, and with that Oneiro, is there anything obvious we'd like to do? Well, they realize they cannot stop us, and so they forfeit. All right, so go up against Skellige here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we have 2 Weavesses and an Arachas Queen in hand, and these are our only 10 provision cost cards, these two. And that means that with 3 out of the 4 copies of them in hand, we'd like to get rid of one of them. so that we can make sure we still get the extra card out from our deck when we play one of them. Triss, I mean, normally would be a way to get Weavess. Can start the Defender to help protect them. We would like a card to create additional copies of. It could be Werecat. That's okay, but not amazing. We could row flood them with Noonwriath if we really wanted to. Let's try to swap it out Cyclops. Slyzard gives us some more consumption, which could be helpful as well. Alright, they're going to start with Herald. So they're going to do some damage to us. I mean, they are... Yeah, Ursine Ritual certainly gave the impression they were going to be self-damaged, and they have shown that already. Does that change what we're looking to do here? I mean, they can, if they want to, go leader ability on several of these and deal a burst of 6 damage. So I think if there's any question as to what we wanted to do first, there isn't any more. It's definitely going to be Cave Troll, because that can take the hit. And for Triss, what are we going to want to get rid of, and what are we going to want to add to our hand? Oh, I didn't even realize we had Royal Decree. Okay, that definitely gives us more flexibility as well. I mean, Noonwriath is interesting to flood them with rats. It's kind of hilarious, but I'm not necessarily sure. Well, I think we have enough consumption. We can actually get rid of Barghest. So, if we want to get greedy, we can try to use Idarran to create extra copies of Weavess, but I'm not sure that's all that helpful in this round when we're not going to be able to bring them all back. Actually, Xavier's actually going to be kind of helpful. Since we are going to create all the Weavesses in round 1, since we have the means to do that, we'd probably like to use Xavier to banish some lower priority cards from our graveyard so that we can still use Witch's Sabbath and get back Weavesses in a later round as well. So that is the primary reason why I think Xavier is a surprise, or, you know, an unusual pick here. Perhaps it might seem at first glance, but actually quite useful. I'm thinking we might actually use Noonwriath for what it's worth. Alright, so if we want to use Idarran, now is the time to do it. Still don't think it makes that much sense for round 1, though. If we were going straight into round 3, then maybe, but I don't think so here. So let's go Weavess in that case. And we'll get the other Weavess out from our deck. Okay, it's Vildkarl. So yeah, more stuff that they're trying to damage. Which is in part why I am reluctant to use a card that will deal damage to them when we start creating more Weavesses. So that is one option we have, is to deal a bunch of damage to them, but I just don't think it's going to help us much. I'm thinking instead it could be row flooding them with rats. It could be... It also doesn't make much sense to go Manticore, which would normally be a good option for us. I mean, it could even be Bridge Troll if we really wanted it to be, just for pure points. Werecat could get rid of them very quickly, but I don't really think that's what we want to do right now either. But either way, on this turn, it should be an Arachas Queen, I think. Unless, again, we were going to do Idarran, but I think we're not going to do that. So we do this, consume 1, and immediately create 1, because the other Arachas, or rather the other Weavess will trigger that. And then we can either go Slyzard to consume these Arachas Queens, or we can use the Weavesses if we really want to. Alright, it's Sigvald, so again, more stuff that wants to take damage, and therefore more reasons why I do not think it is a good idea to have the target of our Weavesses triggering their Death Wish being on a card that does damage. So, I mean, this is probably the turn we have to make it happen. We also could have gone Caranthir to create additional Weavesses, but again, since we can only carry over so many into the next round, don't think it makes too much sense to go that route. So, no Rotfiend, because that would be damage. No Manticore, because that's going to get rid of the guys that deal damage to us. It could be Noonwriath. I mean, our rows are already almost full. I think it... Strangely enough, I mean, we could do the Arachas Queen border abilities, but I think for the most part, that just gets rid of space that we'd like to have. So let's get the Weavesses out, and I think we're just going to go Royal Decree, and we're just going to go grab a Bridge Troll, I think, oddly enough. I think we just do this. And, okay, well, granted, we are gonna rope on them at least a little bit here. And they're gonna forfeit, okay? They don't think they can handle the Weavess overload, and so we will take the win. So there's looking at Monsters Weavess deck for the new Double Down seasonal event. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.